Hello and welcome to this tutorial. My name is Jason Teal and today we're going to be taking a look at how to make Cityscape cinemagraphs. Now this seems like a strange concept, but I can assure you that cinemagraphs and cityscapes will go together like bread and butter. Now the first thing that we have to do is set up our shot and sort of figure out what we want to accomplish here. Now with all good cinemagraphs, there is going to be some tension in the movement and what's moving and what's not moving. However, for a cityscape cinemagraph, it's a little bit more challenging because we have to sort of plan out what is going to be moving. Now today we are on top of a very nice building overlooking a busy intersection here in Ulsan, South Korea. And what we're going to be doing is trying to capture the busy traffic with this cityscape cinemagraph. So what we're going to initially do is take a time lapse of the intersection so that we're going to get the streaking of the lights, and then we're going to be using two different programs to bring it all together. Flixel's Cinemagraph Pro, which is the premier tool for editing cinemagraphs, but one piece of gear that you're going to be needing in order to get these shots, and that is this thing here. If you're using a DSLR camera, then this is going to be an absolute necessity, and it's an intervalometer, and what it does is actually trips the shutter release on a managed timed basis so that you can get accurate shots at an accurate time. So you're not just pressing the shutter every 30 seconds. This will do it precisely for however long you want to do it. Now you can also set this up on your phone and do the same thing. But for this tutorial, we're going to be using a DSLR with the intervalometer attached. Now, as any time-lapse video, you're going to want to be shooting as many frames as you can. For this one, we're looking at probably at minimum 30 frames per second of footage that we want to use. So that means we need 30 photos for every second of video footage that we're going to be using for a cinemagraph later. So you have to sort of plan this out, because not only do you need the 30 images per second, and we're going to probably be needing, say, about 15 to 20 seconds of footage, but you're also going to have to factor in the time each photo takes to expose. Okay, we're just about ready to get started. Now we've got our camera set up already, and I'm just going to plug in the intervalometer and get that all ready to go. The key thing here, what we're looking for, is the light trails from the cars. So we want longer exposures, and we want a lot of frames. And the reason for that is the movement of the traffic varies depending on the traffic lights and the situation down there. So we want to have a lot of footage so that we're not limited to only a certain bit, and it will look jumpy if you don't do this right. So what we're going to do is get set up early. Once the light drops down and the lights come on the streets, then we're going to take as much footage as we can and then see how that looks. Now a couple of points I want to bring up here. As the light fades, you're going to run into a few issues with the changing of the exposures and the lights. The reason being is that because we're taking a video across a longer time frame than you would normally do, because we're doing this as time lapse, then the light will change and you will notice the outline of where you're masking the cinemagraph. So the thing that we want to do is we want to get enough footage so that we can sort of choose a section of that footage so that you don't really notice the change in light, and we're going to play around with that in post-production later. So do keep this in mind, that if you do get a lot of footage from, say blue hour right until the dark, it will show up on your final time lapse, just because the light will change from light to dark, and it will show up also with the cinemagraph. Okay, now I've got my camera set up on the ledge here, and I've taken some precautions just to make sure that the camera doesn't fall over the edge or anything like that. And I've also got my intervalometer plugged in and ready to go. Now what we're basically going to do is just sit and wait. And the reason we're doing that is that right now the conditions are not optimal. It's a little bit too bright. So we're just going to wait till the sun sets a little bit further and blue hour starts to appear, and then we're going to start our time lapse. And again, we're going to be shooting for some longer exposures so that the passing traffic will make the light trails, and that's what's going to make this a beautiful time lapse. Now that we have our shots, we need to make some edits so that these photos look their best. The easiest way that I find is to edit a single photo inside of Lightroom first, and then sync the edits by selecting all of the other shots and clicking the sync button within the develop module. If you don't use Lightroom, you can also do the same thing with Adobe's Camera Raw. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to use a preset for this first image. And then I'm going to synchronize it with the rest of the images. Once our synchronization is complete, we can begin to export our images. Our images are now ready, so we'll need to export them as well as change the file names in order to get the sequence right. The first thing you must do is check the Rename To box under the File Naming section of the Lightroom Export dialog. Then you can choose Custom Name-Sequence from the drop-down menu. Give it a proper name, so here we have Rotary Symbol, and use the starting number 1 to make sure that your starting sequence starts at 1, and that will allow either Flixels per second time-lapse app or even Cinemagraph Pro to pick it up and make sure that the sequence is in order. With all these checked, you can export it and get on with your Cinemagraph. Now I've already exported these previously, so we're going to jump right into Cinemagraph Pro. Okay, now that we have our images ready, we need to load them into Cinemagraph Pro. To do this, we're going to go up to the File menu and select New from Image Sequence. Okay, then we can choose our images, which we have in order here. Now I've already uploaded mine, so I'm just going to choose a previous Cinemagraph Pro project and continue on from there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just basically cut away the areas that we want to be moving. In this case, I'm going to be highlighting the pulse of the city by having the light trails around this rotary move around. So basically I'm going to speed this up quite a bit, but I'm going to show you the basic process that I do to mask out the streets and highlight the movement. So bear with me here. I'm going to make some really rough edits just to kind of show you the overall process. Now you can increase the brush size by using your bracket keys, so you can do this on the go, which really helps. So I'm also using a rather large brush, but I've got the hardness set at about halfway. I want a bit of a soft edge on the brush so that it's not cutting completely away. Okay, now so what we're going to do is just finish touching up this Cinemagraph, and one of the ways that we can do this is use the eraser tool and show the overlay and bring back in some of the areas that we might have over erased or things like that. And it's a really good tool to have, just because you can see where you've made the mistake and you can go back in and really sort of fine-tune your edits. This is a great tool. And if you find yourself that you've cut away too much, again, you can jump back into the brush mode and brush away some of the mask just to sort of fine-tune your edits. Now with that being done, we're just going to go over some of the different areas and just make sure that our edits are 100% precise. And a couple of the areas that I can see here, I just have to brush in a part of the structure here, and with that we can basically finish up this cinemagraph and check out how it looks. So I'm just going to finish off here and we're pretty much done. Okay, now that we've cleaned up the mask and everything like that, we can adjust the other parameters of the cinemagraph to make it look like a surreal, pulsating cityscape. With that, we're going to hide the overlay and we're going to adjust the speed because I want to find sort of a steady flow. If we go too fast, it's going to look a little bit jumpy, but if we go a little bit too slow, again, we get sort of like a choppy effect. So I think around 0.8 has this nice flow to it. Maybe we can see what a little bit slower does. That's too choppy. Okay, so maybe 0.8 or 0.9 is pretty good. Now, the other thing that we want to do is adjust the crossfade because this is going to allow the clips to flow together. With a light trail like this, the crossfade is fairly simple. Okay. And all I'm doing is just trying to get this perfect loop so that it just looks like everything is flowing together without being too obvious that it's a looping cut. Now, with all that, we're going to do one more thing, and that's import another photo. With the beauty of shooting time lapses and having the images one by one, we can find a suitable image, work on it in a program, say like Luminar, and then import it back into Cinemagraph Pro with all of our edits still standing. So this is what I mean. So we're going to click on the little image icon here, and they're going to import an image that I worked on in another app. And if you notice, all of our masking, everything is sort of all right there. So this is an amazing kind of little detail that you might not have noticed because you think that you're sort of stuck with the top image. Well, in this case, we've got all of our edits here in place. All of our intricate masking is still there, but we get to work on the overall image with a powerful editor like Lightroom, Photoshop, or Luminar. So with that being said, our image is pretty much done. We've worked on the mask, we've worked on the crossfade and adjusted the speed, and now we've added in our edited image to make it look pretty much amazing. So let's take a look at the final product.